it going. Okay, so first we are gonna make some delicious broccoli puffs. And so I said to have these chopped already, but I have not chopped my broccoli, so I'm just gonna chop that now. We want about a cup's worth. Okay. And then this doesn't have to be anything crazy, but we're gonna cook these into and then wrap them up into our little puffs. So we want it to still be like bite-sized pieces, but it doesn't have to be super uniform. And then I'm just cutting up mostly florets with a little bit of stalk on the bottom because the stalk can take a little longer to cook. And this is a fairly quick recipe. We're busy during the holidays. Okay, so that's probably a little over a cup, but that's fine. So in my pan, I'm gonna put about a tablespoon of butter, nothing too much, because we're gonna finish this with some Canna butter, and we don't want it to be like super oily or greasy or what have you. And then for the onion, I am gonna chop it up a little bit fine because I just want it to cook fairly quickly. And of course, I want these to be bite-sized pieces. And you could add kind of anything to this, really, if you want to add some garlic. We're going to add some garlic powder, but you could do some fresh garlic if you like. You could also chop up, instead of using like the cream cheese, the vegan cream cheese, you could just like chop up some silken tofu, and do that. So I'm gonna put this on the stove and saute it, and I'm just gonna bring it back here to show you the progress, but we're just gonna take this and saute it. Since the crescent rolls are they only make 8, we only need enough filling for 8 little puffs. So we don't need too much, so this is pretty good. So I'm gonna put it on a medium-high heat and just let everything cook together. And then we want to have a mixing bowl. And then in our mixing bowl, we can add in our spice mix and just get that going while our veggies are heating up. So I'm gonna start with the optional seasoning, which is the ranch seasoning. I use the accidentally vegan ranch seasoning from Kroger. It's like 75 cents a packet, and it's so good. And it just adds a little extra, I don't know, a little extra something. And then a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then you can start with a tablespoon of nutritional yeast, and you can add more if you need it. Because some people don't love the flavor of nutritional yeast, and some people think it adds the perfect amount of cheesiness. So I'm gonna say use it at your own discretion, but start with a tablespoon and then you can go up from there. And then I'm just gonna add in a couple dashes of pepper just to start. And then I'm using seasoned salt. You can use regular salt, just a couple dashes to start. And then you can add more salt and pepper as needed. If you are using tofu, you want to make sure that it's not super, like has a lot of the juice in it. It's not super runny. So you might need to get out any excess moisture that comes in it. And then we're gonna add 1/4 of a cup of cream cheese. You can, I said you can add sour cream, the vegan sour cream if you like. It really comes down to texture. Like if it looks like it's gonna be too runny, maybe that you would use it for like a ranch seasoning instead, then it might be not enough to hold the shape for these like cheesy bombs. So with vegan cheese, you have to be very careful with textures and meltability. You need to know if it's going to be runny when it melts, if it holds its shape. But I think it's always a good idea to mix a couple of cheeses just so you have different textures there, and they kind of act like glue for our bombs. That doesn't sound appetizing, but as a cook, we need a glue that can hold all of the veggies in place in our little puffs. Okay, now we have like a good base mixture going on here. It looks like everything's pretty well combined. I'm gonna preheat my oven to the baking instructions on the crescent roll, which it says 375. So we're gonna preheat to 375. Okay. And then we want to add in 1 cup cheese. And then keep combining everything together. Now my stove takes a little bit to heat up, so it's still barely simmering, but you know, of course you want to monitor your stove while you make this little mixture. And it's gonna look like a holiday cheese ball by the time you're done with it. It should be pretty sticky, but then we're gonna mix in the warm veggies into that. So of course that's gonna loosen everything up and start melting some of the meltable parts down. So we wanna just leave it like this. It can stay at room temperature because we're only gonna take a couple of minutes to saute our veggies. And while the veggies are in the pan, I'm gonna hit them with a little bit of pepper and just a little bit of salt because we do have some salt in this mixture. We don't want it to be super salty, but I just wanna have a little seasoning on those veggies. And we don't need to cook them until they are translucent. We just want them to have a little bit of the moisture cooked out and have them wilted a little bit. So this is about the halfway point. We want them to cook just a little bit more than this. Okay, now we want to take our crescent rolls and we want to roll these out and start separating them. Okay, and you can use your knife to kind of separate them. Now it's really close to impossible to get these all the same size because of the way that the crescent kind of stretches out. If you really want them to be uniform, you can like form them back together, pinch these back together, roll it out, and then cut them more precisely. Or you could just leave them. Okay, so now my veggies are where I want them to be. So they're not like super cooked through, but there's a little crispiness to them, and some of the moisture is cooked out, so they're a little wilted. And I'm just gonna dump that right into the cheese mixture. Okay, so we're gonna take our cheese mixture and just mix everything together. And then you could taste the mixture at this point to see if it needs anything. Does it need a little bit more salt? Does it need a little bit of maybe something that you have in your own kitchen that you think it needs to add in? Okay. Now, these don't take very long to bake, so they're not gonna sit in the oven for like an hour like a cake would. So I am gonna put oil straight into these because it doesn't have a ton of time to cook off like it would in a hot pan or if something was sitting in the oven baking off for a long time. So I'm just gonna use some infused oil. You can brush these with infused butter. And I'm just gonna put a couple drops on the inside. And then I'm gonna use a brush to brush those out. You could use a silicone brush. Actually, that's what I'll do. If you're using butter or oil, you just want to make sure that it's more spread out. This is a high concentration of cannabinoids in a small surface area, so I don't really need to do much. But if you do have infused butter that you want to use a little bit more of, you want to make sure that the inside is coated. And then we're just going to take a teaspoon to a tablespoon of filling. And we're going to fold in these little sides and then roll them up like a little package like that. And then I'm putting it on a parchment lined baking sheet. Tuck in the sides and roll it up. And then you could also brush the outside with infused butter if you'd like. But again, it also depends on what kind of puff pastry or crescent rolls you got. Some of them are artificially butter flavor. So if you add too much of the infused butter, it's definitely gonna take on a weird butter flavor, not like real butter. So I would say, you know, use it at your own discretion, but a little can go a long way. And you might have a little extra filling left over. And honestly, you could just bake it on its own and eat it as a little cheesy broccoli mini. Because everything in that is going to be really tasty. Okay. Last one. All right. And as soon as those are done and the oven is preheated, we can pop those right in. And then we can clean up and get ready for cookies. Okay, now we are gonna make some thumbprint cookies. So we are gonna start with, this is a cup of all-purpose flour, and then we have 1/4 of a cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of butter, and then we're just gonna use a pinch of salt and then some vanilla. And then I think that's it. This is a fairly easy cookie. So we're gonna add 1/4 of a cup of butter, softened. And this is like good and soft. And then our sugar. And a teaspoon of vanilla. Now, this recipe is a base recipe that you can really add so many things to. You could add a lavender sugar or a citrus or, you know, any of the flavored tinctures that they make, anything like that, you could add to this base. And it'll make a great cookie for you. So this is just sugar, butter, vanilla, and then we're gonna add in a pinch of salt. And then we're just creaming that together. And then we wanna add in our flour. And I just like to sprinkle in maybe 1/4 at a time. And if you have a mixer, you can use a mixer, but This is also just really easy to do with a spoon. And now you see it starting to clump together like it's a like a pie dough, like a pie crust. And we want it to be a little bit more firm, so we're just gonna keep going. And we of course want to make sure we have clean hands because this is cookie dough, so we're gonna have to use our hands at some point. And we just want to start forming the dough at this point, because the only moisture that we have is coming from the butter, right? So the more we use our hands, of course, that could melt the butter. So we don't want to use too much hand rolling with this, but we do have to kind of form a ball at this point. Okay, so we have to get it in between this place of like feeling like sand and feeling like a sand castle where it already has the water in it. So we're forming the dough, and then once we can make like a little ball like this, we can start sprinkling in a little bit more at a time. Now, if you have too much of a butter ratio, the cookie is not going to hold its form in the oven. You're going to have a cookie that spreads out. And if you notice, we didn't put any baking powder or anything that's going to make this rise, because a thumbprint cookie is not supposed to rise. It's like a small, delicate cookie. So now we can dump out our mixing bowl here. And we still have some flour left, but I don't know if we'll even have to use it because some of that flour is to roll it out if you'd like to. But I kind of love this flaky texture that it's at right now. And then we just have this ball that from here you could, if you're not ready to serve your cookies or bake your cookies, you could just roll it up, put it in the fridge in some saran wrap, and let it sit for a day or two. But we are gonna bake it because we are on a time crunch here. It's the holidays. So I'm just gonna leave it as is. And then I'm gonna use a small scooper. You could use a spoon or a tablespoon measuring spoon works well also. But my timer is about to go off on the broccoli bomb. So I'm gonna, oh yeah, these are looking good. Ooh, look at those. Those are looking very delicious. Okay, so I'm taking a small, I think this is a 1 ounce scooper, and a 1 teaspoon measuring spoon. So you want something that's about, if you're using a tablespoon measuring spoon, then the teaspoon measuring spoon will be for the jam. So I am just gonna start like this. Ooh. And I'm just making little scoops. Like, this is definitely gonna be a flaky cookie. And we don't have to space these out too much because they shouldn't spread a ton. But of course we want to leave room to grow, you know? And so the best part of these cookies is you don't even need to have infused butter. You could use gummies as your jammy part of the cookie. So if you have an infused weed gummy, let's say that's 20 milligrams, and you want to go to the moon, it's Friday night, it's Christmas, whatever, you could do that with these cookies. Ooh, I think we're gonna have a perfect, nice, okay. So let me space these out a little bit more. And then if you do not have infused gummies, then you want to take any jam you might have and then add a little bit of infused either tincture or you could use infused sugar. Ooh. Anything like that. Oh no. So we're just going to use the back of the spoon and make a little indent for our jam or our gummy to go into. So if you're just using a gummy, just drop the gummy right in the middle and then put it in the oven and you're good to go. And then we just want to add a little dollop of infused jam. And if you're using tincture, you could just put the jam right in there and then do a little drop of tincture. Even when it comes out of the oven, you don't even have to do it at this point. You could just do it right when it comes out and the jam is like melty. Now this jam I made myself, so it's a little runny. So it's very possible that some of these will spill over, and that's okay. I'm prepared for that. That's all right. Okay, so we have these little cuties and we're gonna put them in the oven at 375 for 10 minutes and then keep an eye on them. The broccoli puffs to cool, and these turned out so good. Ooh. I've gone a little bit outside of the box, making 2 dishes that you infuse before you put them in the oven, because that is not normally my style. But for these 2 dishes, because they bake up so quickly, it really doesn't matter, because again, they're not sitting in the oven for a long time. They're not baking off cannabinoids. They're really just cooking the outer layer because the ingredients inside are already cooked. So it's kind of a great, easy way to be able to make some last minute goodies and not have to worry about infusing them after they come out of the oven. Put this to the side. My little half-eaten one there. Okay. So yes, these should cool for, I would say 25 minutes is a good standard, 20 to 30 minutes, just because this is going to be very hot and can burn the whole roof of your mouth off. So we want to make sure that these are cool. Make sure you warn anybody in the kitchen that these are cooling. Then you can put them on a baking rack to cool, or just leave them. You want to take them off any heat and let them cool for 30 minutes, and then they should be ready to serve. But you can see they are like those little butter cookies with a little jam in the middle. They're so good. How cute. So, and I delicious.